From the day we came here, we are becoming more and more aware that the need for global change is urgent. And we're getting fired up to change the world. And that is very, very good. But coupled with that, there is a realization that as much as we want to change the world, and we have goals to change the world, we too have to change ourselves in regard to the way we work. And one of those ways of changing the way we work, the way we handle life, and our apostolates is the whole issue of networking. And this morning, for the second session, we have a very, very distinguished panel. And it is my honor to invite Danny to introduce this very distinguished panel and to guide us through this roundtable. Danny.
Thank you, Charles. First of all, thank you for the organizers for having the honor of this easy task of making the secretariats to speak as one voice. That I think is going to be very interesting, the discussion. We are in a very interesting moment. We have a table that is going to bring us 5 different angles on the Jesuit mission, and we wanted to bring their voices in this moment of our communal discernment in order to know where the different secretaries and also the Jesuit Refugee Service and the General Counselor for Formation, how they see opportunities for collaboration with the social apostolate. So hopefully, when we finish this panel, we will have more ideas of the areas or venues for collaboration between the social apostolate and the rest of the apostolates of the Society of Jesus. So yesterday we saw Jeffrey Sachs very excited about the Sustainable Development Goals, and we are very excited about our universal apostolic preferences. Father General has said many times that they are not an apostolic planning, it's not a strategic planning, it's a call to conversion. They are not a prioritization or a selection of topics. They are actually an orientation for our apostolates in the following years. That's why our panel today, they are going to answer in 2 different rounds. First of all, we are going to ask them, from your apostolate, how are you facing the opportunities that the universal apostolic preferences are bringing to you and your apostolate. And in the second round, very much more specific, from your perspective, what are the opportunities for collaboration with the social apostolate that you see in the UAP's implementation phase, that we are starting little by little. I'm not sure if we are already implementing, but I think we are in that age between awareness, raising, and implementation. So we have, as you say, 5 angles. We have Thomas Molich, the International Director of the Jesuit Refugee Service. I got to learn that you are also delegate for refugees of Father General. We have also Mark Rabisa, General Counselor for Formation. With us is also James Hamby, Secretary for Faith. Jose Mesa, Secretary for Pre-Secondary and Secondary Education, and we have also Mike Garanzini, the Secretary for Higher Ed. They are going to have 5 minutes to answer the first question, how they are facing the UIPs, and then we will have another 5 minutes later on, another round, specifically challenging us spaces for collaboration with the social apostolate. So, vamos a utilizar castellano e inglés, español e inglés, para que también podamos ir descansando los traductores y también podamos ir escuchando en diferentes idiomas. Y vamos a comenzar con Thomas Molich en inglés. Thank you very much, Tom. You have 5 minutes.
Buenos dias, good morning to everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. And I want to begin by saying I come to you as someone who is better on the action side than the contemplation side. And I think if you hear it from this angle, you'll understand what I will be saying. So when in anticipation of the UAPs, many of us in JRS were speculating what else other than migrants and refugees would even make the cut. We're quite confident that we would be one of these priorities for the next 10 years. So when the letter came out, it felt like a downgrade. And those of us who travel enough, it felt like we had been in first class and we were shown, here is your seat in the middle of row 58. We were not even a priority anymore. We were lumped together with the excluded people. And I'm being honest with you. I felt kind of downgraded, felt a bit hurt, kind of wondering where all this is going to go, how we fit in. Of course, being more active than contemplative, I didn't really read the letter which said that the priorities hadn't ended. But I was caught up, or we were caught up in our sense of what does this mean for us. I have to say that the general second letter, the one that came out in April, I think was actually more helpful for us to begin to appreciate what was being asked of us. And it's in that letter that I think the distinction between the priorities, and again, they'd been called different things in different languages. There was a lack of precision, shall we say, in terms of what these meant. It really became clear that what the discernment was asking us was something different. And let me just quote that April letter. The UAPs are orientations, not priorities. A priority is something that is regarded as more important than others. A preference is an orientation, a signpost, a call. Preferences are not just about doing, but about being. They involve our entire life. And I would say that was the beginning of my conversion, or beginning to understand what we were being asked to do. I have to say that the first time I heard Father General talk about this was in a meeting soon after that, and that's when I really began to get this. That it was really an experience that he and the council had had that had been confirmed by the Holy Father and was being presented to all of us. So, in a sense, my own orientation to this began changing, and I will say by extension, JRS's orientation started changing as well. What do I see this doing now? We've probably, like every ministry, we're always involved in planning, we're always doing things, we don't start all over again. One of the things we're working on now is a revision of our overall strategic framework, and how do we incorporate the UAPs into this. We had a meeting last week, and Joan Rosenhauer, JRS USA, specifically asked, well, where does climate change fit into this? And I was kind of pushing back, and I realized, no, we have to let the UAPs really begin to influence the way that we talk and understand our mission. So that's where we are, understanding that this is a call that's inviting us to a different place, and beginning to figure out what is the best way to answer that call.
Thank you very much. To talk about how formation, our men in formation are receiving the UAPs, I'd like to build a bit on what Tom was talking about. Because as we talk to the young men, and I'm also going to talk about men and women, our lay men and women in formation, we try to contrast two different ways of thinking about preferences. The former preferences from Father Kolvenbach were really in some ways similar to corporate goals. They specified static ends towards which we wanted to focus our resources. So Africa, China, the Roman houses, migrants and refugees, the intellectual apostolate, and so forth. And one of the important things about those is that they reminded us of these universal needs that might not be part of our daily life and mission. Oftentimes, I ask guys in formation, how much of a difference did this make to you? And for many, they didn't make that much difference. But the new preferences are completely different. They're not a static end, but a dynamic means. They're really a spiritual path. And they're an invitation to be guided by the Spirit. When we were discerning the preferences, one of the things we realized was that the process that we went through to listen to the Spirit was as important as the product, as the outcome. And when we were discerning the preferences, what happened very quickly is that there were three cries that emerged. The cry of the poor, the cry of the young, and the cry of the earth. If you think about the preferences, the structure is very simple. The first preference tells us how to walk the path, to listen to the Spirit through the exercises and discernment in common. And the other three preferences give us people and places that we must listen to. And that process needs to be embodied, not at the highest level, but at every level in each of our local contexts. So the path of the preferences means that every person, every community, every apostolate has to go through that same process of discernment that we went through here in Rome. To ask yourself, at your local context, who are the poor, the displaced, the people who are crying out? Who are the young in search of meaning and God who are turning to us? Where is the earth degraded, exploited, and asking for care? And we believe that this is especially important in formation. Why? Because the preferences are preferences for 10 years. And the hope is that in 10 years, we as the companions of Jesus will look completely different. Much more than being initially about doing, the preferences, as Tom said, are about conversion. They're about who are we becoming. And that has to start not by leaping into action, but as the general said in his Easter letter, by prayer and by discernment. So the way that we are beginning our reception and formation is inviting all of our men in formation and our communities to begin by prayerfully listening to Father General in his letter. And then to begin by practicing this process of spiritual conversation and discernment in common. The General often says to us, we are learning. We're learning how to do this. And we have to learn together. And so we're encouraging all of our guys in formation to begin by learning again how to pray together, how to discern together, and listening to the cries of the poor, the young, and the earth in their local context. Thanks very much.
So you should see that the slide for faith is blank. And that maybe should be telling you something, that we are in the cloud of unknowing here. So this is a new position, and so I'm still thinking my way into it. But in terms of the UAPs, the way I would see them is they're the fruit of a long discernment, beginning with GC 31. If you go right the way back to 1965, you'll find all the UAPs are present in all the subsequent congregations. So there's a sort of convergence that comes at this moment. So I would see the UAPs as our ways into the world, as the roads that the Spirit is taking us into the world, and as sites of encounter with the world. So that opens up the possibility of collaboration in so many different areas. But it takes us into that world in specific ways. So what does faith have to do with all of this, I suppose, is the question. Because any one of those UAPs, with the exception maybe of the first, could be brought about or worked for without any faith commitment at all. And that's a good in itself. I think that faith operates in two ways, and they work together. First of all, there's the faith which works internally to strengthen and to build faith, the faith of the community, which is necessary so that the community can bear witness in truth to Christ. The second aspect of that is the service of faith to the world, and that's where faith becomes open and transformative. And if you've got three elements of faith that you will have encountered in all your different works, the first is, I think, that faith brings a new and lasting horizon of understanding, that the political philosophy, economics, all the rest cannot bring. It brings a new way of understanding who we are and what the dignity and the purpose of each human being is in the world. And that cannot be diminished by politics or economics or whatever else. So it's keeping that window permanently open on that transformative horizon for every human being. The second is what I would call the gospel virtue, the gospel power of parousia, that is boldness, that ability to speak courageously on behalf of the poor, on behalf of those who are voiceless, on behalf of the Christ who is hidden in our midst. And the third is faithfulness, because I think one of the great things that belongs to the church and belongs to all our organizations is our capacity to remain faithful to the people that we serve, irrespective of the changing conditions and the politics and all the rest of it. So those are three great things that faith brings, which I think are indispensable and are new and permanently generative in each situation. That's open to collaboration. There's that wonderful document by Pope Francis and the Grand Imam, that shows how we can enter into a genuine interreligious dialogue with Islam, with other religions, for the good of humanity. But one thing that does preoccupy me, and I want to put this out for you to help me with, is in the third week of the exercises, Ignatius asks us to reflect on how the divinity hides itself. Because my sense is that for many people in our world, the divinity has hidden itself. And they think that God is absent. That's one thing that we need to help with. And we also need to say then, if the divinity hides itself, how can we open our eyes to God's presence, and in what form? And finally, what faith teaches us is the work that we do together for humanity and with humanity is a humanizing work. So those are some of the reflections.
Buenos días, voy a hablar en español y quisiera primero expresar la alegría que sentimos como cuerpo en la compañía por esta celebración de los 50 años de ustedes. Y creo hablar en nombre de los colegios cuando agradezco por la ayuda como nos han dado para acercarnos más a los pobres y entender las luchas sociales de nuestro tiempo. Y más recientemente porque nos han inspirado a entender y responder a la crisis ecológica de nuestro mundo. Creo que puedo afirmar que en muchas partes del mundo hemos aprendido, ustedes y nosotros, a caminar juntos y todos somos mejores por ello. Es verdad que en otras épocas había causado división y éramos sectores, pero creo que finalmente estamos entendiendo que somos parte del mismo cuerpo y que tenemos la misma misión y que juntos seremos mejores que solos o cada uno por su lado. Quiero entonces ahora compartirles cómo estamos empezando a abordar las PAU, las preferencias apostólicas. Lo primero que quisiera decir, como ya lo han dicho otros, es que estamos en un proceso de aprendizaje. Y si algo sabemos los jesuitas por 500 años de educación, es que el verdadero aprendizaje toma tiempo, es lento, necesita darse la oportunidad de entenderlo. Por eso tenemos 3 fases y nosotros en este momento estamos en la primera, que es una fase de entendimiento, comprensión y asumir las PAUs. En esto hemos trabajado con la ICAGE, con la Comisión Internacional del Apostolado Educativo de la Compañía, y estamos empezando a entenderlas como estas orientaciones, como esta inspiración que nos invitan y nos retan a ser mejores. Y por eso estamos empezando a usar las PAUs como un marco general de nuestras reuniones globales. Estamos haciendo lo mismo para invitar a todos nuestros colegios a que a nivel local y regional las puedan ir asumiendo con las provincias y con las conferencias. El próximo año tendremos en Yogyakarta, Indonesia, el segundo coloquio de educación y lo hemos enmarcado desde esta perspectiva de las PAUs. En el congreso virtual que tendremos en enero y febrero, que anticipa el coloquio, las utilizaremos como ese marco general para que nos ayuden a una orientación para lo que hacemos en nuestro trabajo. Y en Educate Magis, que es la plataforma en línea de los colegios, hemos creado un sitio web especial para compartir cómo se está respondiendo a ellas y animar su implementación poco a poco. La segunda fase, incorporando la visión de las PAU en todo lo que hacemos. Con ICAGE estamos discerniendo todavía cómo nos aseguramos que tengan un impacto real en lo que hacemos en nuestros colegios. Convencido que si no caminamos bien y lentamente, las vamos a destruir. Si las volvemos simplemente una casilla para chequear, ya hicimos esta, ya hicimos esta, ya hicimos esta, no vamos a entender y apropiarnos de las PAUs. Entonces, muchos colegios lo harán a nivel local y regional, de acuerdo con las provincias y conferencias. Y la tercera fase, que la llamamos evaluando el impacto de las PAUs en nuestros colegios y redes. Lo que no se evalúa, no se aprende. Por eso, vamos a ofrecer algunos formatos y herramientas evaluativas para ver cómo nuestros colegios están respondiendo, lo que se llama evaluación formativa, qué problemas se encuentra y cómo nos podemos ayudar a avanzar desde las PAUs. En el ciclo de reuniones globales incluiremos estas herramientas de evaluación, compartiremos sus resultados y buscaremos mejorar poco a poco con ellas. Y esperamos que sigamos en este camino juntos. Yo sé que aquí hay profesores de universidades, hay rectores de colegios aquí presentes, porque cada vez se están desdibujando estas fronteras entre sectores, silos, afortunadamente, y estamos convencidos de que estamos en el mismo cuerpo, con la misma misión y desde las mismas preferencias. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you this morning. As the Secretary for Higher Education, I have the job of trying to corral, trying to move approximately 205 higher education institutions around the world that the Society sponsors. You know that this is one of the riches that we have as a society, and you also know that sometimes these are difficult institutions to access or to work with. They range in complexity from major universities with multiple schools and multiple campuses down to a single faculty serving a small group of students. So it's quite a range of higher education institutions that are part of this. We operate really as an association of regional associations. So we are a network of regional associations. Each of our society's regions has an association of higher education, and those associations are in various stages of development. They are, some of them are quite well organized and quite well staffed, and some of them are brand new and just developing now. So they have different capacities for, we'll say, delivering. With regard to the UAPs, I have been very surprised at how well people are disposed to these UAPs. I thought at first, I was part of the, like all of us, we were part of the deliberation, the discernment for these UAPs. I thought that if we did not have the intellectual apostolate somehow signaled in these, that there would be a real rebellion, minor rebellion, with regard to this list of 4 UAPs. That has not been the case. Everywhere I go and people I talk with in higher education work are fascinated by them, they feel challenged by them, and they feel as if the society is giving them a real sense of direction. That this is the first time they've felt really called to this. I do regret that sometimes, I think Tom has pointed this out, that sometimes people think that the old priorities are no longer, we're no longer at work at those. I am very concerned that we keep developing higher education in Africa, very concerned that we keep sending very good people here to the Roman apostolates that the church has entrusted us with. We're preparing a lot of the church leadership here in Rome. Very concerned about China. What do we do and how do we approach China? And the intellectual apostolate in each of those areas is critical for the church and for, I think, Catholicism moving forward in really important places in the world. So just to give a plug to the old priorities, but the preferences have really inspired people. I think that Mark said it very well. The discernment preference is really the roadmap, and the cries, the other 3 cries, the other 3 preferences really tell us where we're going or where we should be looking. You don't need to read all of this, but this is just to say that before the preferences, the higher education apostolate, we chose 6 areas that we call priorities. And these areas we don't need to change or abandon. We need to incorporate the wisdom of the UAPs or the graces of the UAPs as we reflect on them into this. So for example, we know that forming faculty and staff leadership is critical in each of the regions. It's every place has decided they really want to do this. I'm going to have a chance to talk about the rest of these because I'm first on the next round, so I'll concede.
Very good.
Thank you very much. I think that now we have set the framework, and we all agree that I think never before we were so conscious of being one universal apostolic body with a unique and common mission. And I think the UAPs are the perfect framework for collaboration. They are an incredible opportunity for us to find the synergies around the mission that will somehow create the apostolic opportunities of the future. That's why it's so important, this discussion, and that's why we wanted to give another round specifically on how do you see from your perspective of the universal mission your collaboration or opportunities for collaboration with the social apostolate. So we are going to do the other way around. So Mike Garanzini, you start with 5 minutes about collaboration of the social apostolate and higher education. Thank you.
Thank you. I trust you'll tell me if I go over. As I was saying, so these preferences are now telling us how we need to take care of our priorities. In the area of formation of leadership, we have to figure out how to help people that run our institutions become men and women who discern the future of these institutions, as several of these panelists have talked about. When it comes to educating at the margins, which was one of our priorities, we have to now think about how to work with the collaborators that are obvious places for us in the society, Fe y Alegría, JWL, JRS, and so on. When it comes to preparing people for civic and political leadership, obviously we've talked a lot about that here. We need to think about the fact that everywhere you go in the world, people talk about the Jesuit education of some of the most powerful people leading the political scene there. We're responsible for putting many of these men and women in the positions that they are. At least we help prepare them. Are we really doing the right job? And how do we prepare them for a democratic global citizenship? So we've got a number of things that are going on. I really need to know from you how it is that you see yourself fitting in and contributing, or how we can work together. As I said earlier, our institutions are complex. It's very often difficult to know how to access them, how to get inside them. Some of our social apostolates are actually run from inside these institutions. Some are separate, like many of yours, but some are inside the institution. We should be talking about collaborations there. So we're interested in interreligious dialogue, in educating for environmental and economic justice, and we're interested in advancing peace and reconciliation. And we have projects in each of these areas that are collaborations between institutions and among institutions, but we need to bring in the social apostolate in a serious way in each of these areas.
José Mesa, from the secondary and pre-secondary education.
Muchas gracias. Gracias. Ok. Yo quisiera empezar diciendo que, de hecho, ya colaboramos muchísimo. Hay muchos trabajos de colaboración entre los colegios y el sector social o el apostolado social a nivel provincial, a nivel regional. No recuerdo ninguna reunión en la que yo haya estado que no haya presencia de ustedes como conferencistas, ayudando a los colegios en el proceso de discernimiento, o sea que creo que de eso ya existe muchísimo. Sin embargo, como la pregunta es a partir de las PAU, si hay otras posibilidades u oportunidades de colaboración, yo quisiera decir que veo dos. Una es que hagamos juntos, al nivel local, a nivel de conferencias y tal vez aquí en la curia, a nivel de secretariados, un ejercicio de discernimiento común para que identifiquemos algunos proyectos en que podamos trabajar juntos. Pero tiene que ser un proceso de discernimiento juntos, porque si no, no puede realmente decir que vamos a colaborar. Entonces, yo creo que tenemos que hacerlo. Como digo, sé que a muchos, sobre todo a nivel local y regional, ya hay muchos proyectos de ese estilo. Creo que la segunda parte es que podemos ofrecer cada uno nuestras áreas de especialización y conocimiento. Ustedes especialmente tienen experiencia de trabajo con los marginados, una gran experiencia en incidencia que nosotros los colegios no tenemos y que es un poco lejano, a veces incluso difícil de entender por el ambiente institucional de los colegios. Y, por supuesto, conocen ustedes de primera mano los problemas de justicia social y ecología. Pero nuestros colegios también tienen mucho que ofrecer, creo yo. Primero, nuestra experiencia en el proceso de enseñanza-aprendizaje, porque finalmente, como he podido escuchar aquí, muchos de ustedes lo que quieren ofrecer también es una manera de aprender a acercarnos a los demás y al mundo, y en eso nos podemos colaborar mutuamente. Pero la pedagogía ignaciana es algo que hemos venido manejando por varios siglos y que es posible que nos ayude a todos. Trabajamos con los jóvenes, con las nuevas generaciones. Muchos de ellos no están interesados ni en la fe, ni en la justicia, ni en la ecología, hay que decirlo, es verdad. Pero tenemos la oportunidad con ellos de acercarnos y de tal vez ofrecerles e invitarlos, y aquí nos tenemos que acompañar a ver cómo hacemos esa invitación a los jóvenes. También nuestros colegios tienen mucha experiencia también de trabajo con los marginados, no digo solamente el servicio jesuitas a refugiados en la parte educativa, fe y alegría, sino que muchos de nuestros colegios llamados tradicionales tienen también esa como su misión fundamental, y ahí también tenemos una gran riqueza que compartir. Tenemos también que estamos nosotros acostumbrados a la planeación y administración de instituciones que yo llamaría de largo aliento. Y eso implica un conocimiento que también podríamos compartir. Y también, por supuesto, la experiencia de formación en la fe. Así tengamos muchas preguntas y muchas dificultades en esta dimensión. Entonces yo creo que, como digo, necesitamos caer en cuenta que somos mejores si trabajamos juntos verdaderamente como compañeros al servicio de la misma misión a través de las mismas PAUs. Y yo creo que eso inclusive sería un gran testimonio para el mundo, en un mundo tan dividido y tan polarizado como el mundo nuestro. Sería un gran testimonio que nosotros pudiéramos darle al mundo de que somos capaces de salir de nuestros pequeños círculos y silos, poder conversar, discernir juntos y trabajar juntos. Algunas áreas más prácticas que creo yo que se podemos trabajar juntos, de nosotros ya lo estamos haciendo en los colegios, algunos de ustedes nos han ayudado, por supuesto, es el tema de la ciudadanía global, que el Padre General nos ha dado como prioridad para los colegios. La calidad educativa para todos, por supuesto, es muy importante y ustedes ahí lo han hecho desde una propuesta de incidencia. Los programas de servicio social y acercamiento a la realidad social y cultural de nuestro tiempo. En el apostolado educativo incluso contamos con instituciones como el JRS y como Fe y Alegría, que están de hecho en los dos. Están en la parte educativa, esa es la prioridad del JRS ahora, pero también tienen y siempre han tenido una gran parte en este campo del apostolado social y nos pueden ayudar a tender puentes y ayudarnos a caminar juntos. Así que yo espero que podamos dentro de unos años mostrarle al mundo que sí es posible trabajar juntos y que juntos somos más y mejores.
Muchas gracias. James Hamby from the Secretariat of Faith.
Thank you. I really don't have any concrete proposals like that because I really want to hear from you how we can work and how faith can serve. But let me just give three very tentative and preliminary reflections on this. When I was in Oxford about 6 years ago, together with the Centre for Refugee Studies, we organized a conference on the faith of refugees and migrants. And what really astonished me at that point was how little work had been done to recognize the importance of faith for refugees and migrants. And it seems to me that in the areas where you're working, I mean, the poor have faith because it's the only thing that they have, very often. It's community and it's resilience and it's hope. And if we buy into a secular narrative which wants to exclude that and say, oh, that's a matter of their own personal choice and we'll get on with all the economic changes and all the advocacy work that we need to do, it's actually the equivalent of depriving the native people of their land. It's something that's intrinsic to their identity. So it's how can we serve that faith that's already there. The second thing is the difference that faith makes in our work. And it's not exclusive. It doesn't exclude others who have no faith or a different faith. But for me, the great work of the articulation of faith and the presence of faith is, first of all, faith carries the memory of humanity. And secondly, it works against all the reductionist philosophies and approaches that we have. And thirdly, it is the great advocacy of human freedom. Those seem to me to be extraordinary values which are nourished by faith and impact on all our work and are particularly important at the moment. And the third is what I was saying in the first session, is where this divinity hides itself. I was very struck yesterday and today listening to the discussion and to the speakers that, in fact, we don't see where God is because we don't see God in the poor. And yet there's something there that they have to teach us. And so I think there's an important resource, dialogue, whatever you'd want to say, hermeneutic for us to bring to the world from our work. So those are just three ideas that I would want to put out there. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Now we are going to listen to Mark Ravisa from the perspective of formation.
So I have no slides for this part because I don't want to distract you with any images. I just have one ask, and I want to try to make it very clear. I said that we in formation are beginning to receive the preferences by beginning to walk that spiritual path through prayer and discernment and listening to the cries of the poor, the young, and the earth. And I trust, and I know from talking to many of you across these days, that you are beginning in the same way. Here's the ask. When in your processes of prayer, spiritual conversation, and discernment, you listen to the cry of the young, please do not forget our young Jesuits in formation and the young men and women who want to work in the social apostolate with us. I invite you to just reflect for a moment on the importance of a mentor. How many of us in this room are where we are today because someone cared about us and someone invited us to try something we didn't imagine we could do? I don't want to embarrass Greg Boyle, but I know so many of us were touched by the power of his words yesterday. But what he didn't say is how Homeboy and Dolores Mission over the years has received innumerable young Jesuits from the novitiate, young guys on Regency, young men and women who heard about Greg and want to go and work with him. And those people who go are changed. And I know that you have had those same experiences. So please, as you discern how to move forward in the next 10 years, ask yourselves, how do we intentionally and strategically invite the young men who we are trying to form, the next generation, to work with us? And I have 3 concrete suggestions. First, intellectual formation. If you are anywhere near one of our juniorates, houses of first studies, or theologates, please get in touch with those rectors and superiors and invite our men and those students to be out working with you and integrating that into their studies. Invite yourself into their classes to talk about what you're doing, because we need more and more integration between what's happening in the classroom and what's happening in the world. Secondly, if you are not near one of our formation centers, don't despair. We have men and women who go on experiments during the novitiate, during their regency, right after ordination for a pastoral year, during their tertianship. If you can be proactive and go and say, this is the opportunity at our place, that type of experiment can change a life. And thirdly, please do not forget those who are not Jesuits. The general has said to me, you're supposed to be thinking about formation, and that does not just mean men in the Society of Jesus. It means all of the young women and men who collaborate together in our mission, the mission of the Lord. And so create internships. Think about ways that you can invite a young person during the summer into your work. It's so easy to get focused on those great needs of the people we're serving, and the UAPs are trying to invite us to step back prayerfully and really say where the Spirit is leading us. I have no idea concretely what that will mean in your context, but I believe the Lord does. And I'm excited to hear, if you listen to the Spirit, what you and the Lord will imagine to shape the next generation of people who will serve the poor, the young, and the earth. Thank you very much.
and the last 5 minutes, Thomas Molich from the Jesuit Refugee Service.
So JRS is a little bit different than the other four folks here. JRS is not part of the council. We are, as I said, down the street from the Curia. But also, JRS is part of social ministries. And I really am going to make these reflections as one of us. JRS as, I think, an important piece of whatever social ministries means for us going into the future in this world of the UAPs. And I want to especially thank Michael Cherney, because he gave the word that I didn't have for what I wanted to talk about, this idea of synodal, or the synodality of our being able to come together to listen to one another, and to use his phrase, that I wind up voting for things that I would never have voted for before the process. I think we in the social ministries are at a point, if we can really listen to where God is taking us and seeing where we are invited to go, that we will find ourselves being led in ways and in positions that we had not thought of. And let me approach that in three different levels. How could our synodal voice, whatever that winds up meaning, how could our way of listening and changing and letting the Spirit move us impact the Sustainable Development Goals? This is a key part. This is mentioned on the website as a key potential impact for the UAPs. And certainly, Jeffrey Sachs in that conversation specifically looked at that. I will make the observation that we, the Society of Jesus, cannot really say and promote something intelligent about all 17 of them, much less say all there is to say about any one of them. Just like the Amazon Synod talked about a number of issues, but said these are the most important ones. Can we, as a ministry, working with other ministries, say this is where God is calling us to put our emphasis? In the same way, and I just say this as something which might be pertaining to our local sector, one of the things JRS works with now is what's called the CRRF, the way that governments are implementing a different way to look at forcibly displaced people. How does each of us in our own area express that synodality that comes from a real sharing with other partners in the society? I think we have to let ourselves, in our own areas of expertise and priority, be influenced by what the rest of our sisters and brothers have to say. And finally, this is the old version. What this was supposed to be was more at the local level. And what I meant by that is, for instance, my province, West Coast, USA, has embarked on a process of a year of prayer and then saying, where does that take us? I think we in social ministries have an opportunity, as how this evolves at the local and regional levels, to really be participants, to express our points of view, but also to be influenced by what we hear, so that what we are doing, in a sense, builds from the conversation, from that synodality. My other word here is glocal. I don't like the word, but I think it captures something important. It's what Joe Xavier was saying yesterday about a global reality expressed quite locally. What might it mean for us to really be a global organization which expresses its mission intentionally and deliberately, very locally? I'm a structures kind of a guy, so let me just bring up two questions on that level which may get us thinking about this. Danny and I have several conversations on this particular point. The question of identity and networking. Where does the identity fit in? I'm going to use the Jesuit term of governance here. How do we manage, or how do we lead this process that hopefully out of that synodality or that experience of really listening to one another will take us to a different place. I don't have an answer to that, but I don't think we, whoever we are in this, can sit passively and just say, whatever happens, happens. And then one final thing, how does the society respond globally? And I bring this up again. We all look at this. This is the cover representing all of our groups. We say we want to respond globally. But I think someone outside of our system says, how can you possibly respond globally with all those different organizations, with all those different logos? Logos say something to the rest of the world. They're not about us. They're about the rest of the world. And if we have 7, 8, 9, 10, 100 logos, what does that say about our ability to respond globally? I don't have an answer to that, but I think it gets at the challenges we face to respond as one in the spirit of the UAPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Perfecto. Tenemos todavía 12 minutos de sesión para poder abrir el suelo y que podamos hacer algunas preguntas. No vamos a poder tener muchas. Yo creo que vamos a escuchar 3 preguntas. ¿Vale? Tenemos ahí Kalilo, Nauras. Perfecto. Venga, estas 3 preguntas y con eso abrimos la mesa para que respondan los secretarios. Un micrófono, por favor, allá, a Kalilo. Nauras. Escuchamos las 3 preguntas. We listen to the 3 questions and then we open the microphone for the 5 of you.
Sí, gracias a los compañeros por su compartir. Yo tengo una pregunta para para James. El tema de los ejercicios espirituales y el discernimiento es fundamental, también lo ha señalado el Papa, dentro de las 4 preferencias. Sin embargo, yo siento que estamos usando mal la palabra discernimiento, porque decimos, tenemos que hacer discernimiento, pero muchas veces caemos en análisis, y eso no es discernimiento. Y lo que caracteriza, un gran aporte de Ignacio a la compañía y a la iglesia fue el discernimiento. Entonces yo creo que ahí hay una invitación desde el secretariado a que podamos entrar realmente en dinámica de discernimiento, que es lo que nos permite escuchar la voz de Dios para saber por dónde ir en lo social, en la formación, en la educación. Y otra pregunta para Mark. Tú nos has dicho, acerquémonos a los centros de formación. Y yo tengo experiencia de tratar de acercarnos y muchas veces no se da. En mi caso, yo me hospedo siempre en casa de formación y nunca me han invitado para una reunión de comunidad a hablar del sector social. Quizás no sea la persona más adecuada, pero bueno. Pero no solamente es eso. Al frente de una casa de formación está el servicio de jesuitas de migrantes. Alfredo es coordinador de 2 redes sociales importantes en el Perú. Viven en el mismo espacio y no han ido a visitarlo, ¿no? Hay un joven estudiante de doctorado que vive a 2 cuadras acá en Europa, haciendo un doctorado, al costado de un centro social. Lo han invitado, todavía no va. Creo que es una invitación a que desde la formación también tengan la necesidad de acercarse.
Naura Samur from GRS Middle East. I'm a little bit fortunate. We are fortunate for that collaboration. We collaborate very much with the university, for example, in my region, St. Joseph University, Jesuit University, Faculty of Education, law school for advocacy, some advocacy, and medical school for trauma, post-trauma situations. So, good. We receive a lot of novices, of regent, of tertian in experiment, which is very much good. My request would be in a situation where the most of conflict is based on religious and confessional conflict, it's to have some documents in spirituality and theology to answer. So this is for you, little bit, James, and we need it in order to have a good process for reconciliation and something like that. We don't have a department in JRS for theological research, but we need that.
Thank you. And the last question.
I'm Jérôme Gay from France. If you want the implementation of the second UAP in the different sectors, and if you want a strong collaboration between the sectors and the social apostolate, then it's really needed that we have a strong social apostolate, that the social apostolate really exists and is strong, and that we have sufficient number of Jesuits who are sent with the poor and living a full life with the poor. That we need really. And I feel it's a real challenge for our Society of Jesus, and we have some difficulties for that and for long. So we should study why it is so difficult. What are the resistance? What are the levers so that we can have a strong apostolate in the different provinces? And maybe the formation is one key thing, but we have to really work on that.
Thank you very much, James, for not having a PowerPoint. You have been the destiny of some of these questions. Maybe James and then Mark, and then we open the microphone to the rest of you if you want to add some points.
Well, thank you very much for the question. And I mean, this is something that will continue to occupy my own thoughts, so that's very stimulating. I think on that question of discernment, which is sort of fairly central and to all the UAPs. First of all, I'd want to make a distinction between prudence and discernment. Prudence is the exercise of our practical reason to make good decisions around the good or the common good. It doesn't have, to my mind, it doesn't have any theological presuppositions or anything like that. So that doesn't mean to say it's bad. It just simply means it's a process of decision-making which is for the common good and therefore is in itself good. Discernment, I think, is something else. Discernment, genuine discernment, first of all, presupposes that God is working and working within our networks, working within our world, working within our situations. That's why the whole question of listening becomes important. And you'll see in all the documents from Francis the emphasis on what I would call deep listening or a contemplative listening. And that's sort of going beneath the surfaces of our concerns and our anxieties to really ask the question, where is the current moving? Where's the current of the Spirit moving? And that is listening to all the different areas and people involved in that. That requires of us a humility and an openness, because it means that we don't have the answers in advance. No matter how expert we are, we don't have it. And it requires a trust that the Spirit will speak to us through this process. The third element of that is that first UAP, to show the way to God. I'm a little bit hesitant about that, to be honest, because I'm not sure I know the way to God. I know what we all say, that the Jesuit way is the way to God, and maybe it's the only way to God. But actually, I think there's a prior question there. First of all, we have to let God show us the way to God's self. And God will do that, and maybe in unexpected ways and unexpected places and with peoples. So I would want to put that process, which is a deeply spiritual process, in the forum first.
Mark, a word about formation.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. The situation you described it breaks my heart, and it's exactly the kind of thing that I was thinking of. When I go around, when I visit formation centers, I ask, so where are the guys going for their apostolates, and how are you integrating it into the academics? Because when we talk to our young men in formation, they really want it. When I do spiritual conversation with them, one of the things they're most desiring is to get closer to the poor and to have that experience connect with what they're doing in the classroom. We're talking about justice and reconciliation. I sort of feel that there's been a lot of hurt in the society, and that a lot of times people have felt discounted, especially by the educational apostolate. And I'm praying and I'm hoping that the preferences might be a way of bringing people together in prayer and conversation that maybe had not been doing that regularly. So I commit and promise from my end everywhere I'm going, I'm saying, are you reaching out to the social apostolate? Where are we sending our men? But it will help a lot, and that was the reason for my invitation, if you also are going to them. Because I really do believe the Spirit's trying to do something very new. And that our young guys and young men and women really need your mentorship. So thank you. Don't give up.
Tom, Jose, and Mike, you have 1 minute each to maybe focus on the strength of the social apostolate or maybe about the theological foundations of reconciliation.
I just want to appreciate the comment you made about participation of Jesuits in the social apostolate. My old leadership hat would say that the number of Jesuits is decreasing and the number of Jesuits in the social apostolate is, comparably speaking, about where it was. And I look at JRS as we're blessed to have a number of Jesuits. But that's not good enough, and I want to echo that. And when this comes up with a Jesuit, my experience is there are many people who want to be part of the social apostolate in many ways, and the other sometimes more urgent needs of a province shift that somewhere else. I always ask a provincial, when a guy is interested in JRS, let the discernment play itself out and not cut it off. And hopefully this UAP process can be something where we're really, in a sense, embracing this so that the discernments of guys who are interested or who would be invited by their major superior to do this would bear fruit, whatever that fruit winds up being.
Jose, you want to say something? Then Mike, you can wrap up.
Diría que nosotros experimentamos también en los colegios y en el apostolado educativo esa misma falta de personal. Ustedes lo deben saber que en sus provincias incluso hay colegios donde ya no hay ningún jesuita. O hay provincias que tienen 10 y 15 colegios y apenas hay un jesuita. Conozco provincias que tienen 25 colegios y no hay ningún jesuita en los colegios. Entonces yo creo que nos vamos a tener que ayudar a hacer un discernimiento de cómo es posible, y si es posible, yo creo que Dios lo quiere, poder seguir teniendo estas plataformas apostólicas con esta escasez creciente, más en unas partes que en otras, e inclusive con la ausencia. Tal vez la parte positiva es que Dios nos está diciendo que tenemos que tomar en serio a los laicos y laicas y que ellos y ellas nos pueden ayudar de una manera significativa, y de hecho es así, si no tendríamos que cerrar el 99% de los colegios, por lo menos.
I was fascinated with the question about the role of the interreligious question, the interreligious challenge, the problem of interreligious tensions. And some places it's quite obviously at the root of many social issues, and other places it perhaps is a little bit less. I noticed that in both of our task force on peace and reconciliation, which is interested in learning more about how Jesuits and the social apostolate are dealing with peace and reconciliation issues in various parts of the world, also our task force on interreligious dialogue, they both are taking a turn towards let's ask and work with young people. Let's ask young people how it is they would like to see the future of their society with regard to either some reconciliation needs or with regard to interreligious cooperation, collaboration. And I think the future is in, we would do more by working with the next generation of people who will become the leaders of their society. So we have to turn now from the intellectual apostolate and turn a little bit more towards just listening to the voices of young people who want to make a difference in their society. And I think that's the strategy that we have to put in place.
As it is proper, we are going to last word to the faith.
Thank you. I just wanted to return to the point about needing a theology and a spirituality. I'm a theologian, so I believe passionately in theology and in the power and the transformative power of theology, which I think is one of the deep riches of our church. However, theology cannot work in a vacuum. So what I would say is, if we enter into a conversation about the theology that's needed for this situation, or the spirituality that's needed for this situation, then that's where theology is done. So it's an invitation then, let's have that conversation wherever the need is, because we have the resources to respond to it. Okay?
So we are going to bring all these insights into our prayer and the sharing of the groups this afternoon, and probably this will also shape a little bit how we discern into the future of social apostolate. Please join me in a warm applause of thank you for your great insight. Thank you very much.
And another applause for Danny for guiding us.